Howdy my totally, as always, Tubular Gamers, we're back with, you guessed it, another video. It's the end of the year, we're wrapping things up, we're talking about the best games of the year. Today, we're going to be talking about some shooters. I think 2024 was a pretty good year when it came to shooters, whether it's in first or third person. There were plenty of awesome games where you get to shoot the shit out of pretty much everything. From the little indies all the way up to the big AAA boys. If you're a fan of shooting guns in your video games, I think you were eating pretty good this year. So in this video, I wanted to highlight 10 of the best shooters I played in 2024. This list is in no particular order. Again, this is first and third person shooters. I'll be sharing my thoughts for each game and why I think they deserve to be on a list like this. This isn't going to be like a full in-depth review of these games or analysis or anything like that. As always, I haven't played every single game. I tried my hardest to play as many games as possible this year, but I'm sure I missed some of them, so let me know down below what first person or third person shooters you think I should check out. I'm always looking for new recommendations, and I'm always lurking down below in the comments. So, as always, please like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know how you all are feeling down below. Got the Patreon and the super thanks. Any support is truly greatly appreciated. Thank you all for the support. Enough of this sappy intro. Let's get to shooting. So the first game I want to talk about today is Angerfoot, which is not only one of my favorite shooters of the year, but one of my favorite games of 2024. This game was way better than I expected, and it might be the most insane game to come out all year. Seriously, this game is just absolutely bonkers. It gets redonkulous. The game sees you playing as the titular Angerfoot, who goes around basically just kicking the shit out of everybody after some criminals steal all of his fresh kicks, so it's up to him to get all of his shoes back. The world and story and characters of Angerfoot are pretty comical, but they actually do try to flesh this world out a little bit, and I think it is actually pretty cool. The game has a fantastic personality to it, and it just has this certain attitude about it. The city your character lives in is literally known as Shit City. Like, the game just has a great in-your-face tude, and it's got a really good vibe to it. But when it comes to actually playing this game, yeah, it gets pretty crazy. I've heard some people compare it to Hotline Miami and say that this is Hotline Miami in first person, and you know, to a certain extent, I totally agree. It is a very fast-paced, twitch-based shooter where you're really going to have to memorize enemy placement, level design, and you're going to be dying over and over, and you're going to have to just retry these levels over and over. But man, there is so much more to this than that. So the big appeal to this game, the main gimmick, is obviously the foot. You go around just kicking the shit out of everyone. This is easily the most powerful kick to ever exist in a video game. Someone has finally dethroned the Mighty Boot. Kicking in this game not only is incredibly satisfying fun, but it's also hilarious. You can kick everything. When I mean everything, I really mean everything. You're kicking doors down, you're kicking enemies, you're flinging shit back. As you play through the game, you unlock new shoes and get new abilities. You can slide kick, you can basically just fly while kicking at the same time. Yeah, the kicking goes hard in this game. It's also incredibly powerful. Just about everything dies in one kick. And there were plenty of levels I finished without even shooting a single bullet. You can really just kick the shit out of everything. The game has a great physics engine as well, so when you kick people or you kick things, they just go flying. And it just makes the kicking feel so unbelievably good. It just has such a great impact on everything. The feedback you get is incredible, and thanks to all the different shoes and abilities you get while you're playing through the game or completing these optional challenges, you get plenty of different kicking abilities. Like, you aren't just kicking these enemies one way. For instance, you get the ability to kick enemies upward, which just looks hilarious. I really never thought kicking could feel this good in a video game.
Kicking? Oh, I want to do some kicking!
But there is actually a little bit more to this game than kicking. You take on plenty of other enemies, and you will occasionally have to use guns. The shooting in this game, it feels pretty good. It is very much like Hotline Miami. There's no reloading, and you can throw every weapon you get. There's plenty of different weapons you get in this game. A pistol, a shotgun, a submachine gun. You even get some unconventional weapons like this plunger, and even a crossbow, and it all feels really good. This game has a very fast pace to it. It is one of the fastest paced games I've ever played. It just goes straight tweaker mode where you're going to need quick reflexes, especially once you get to the end of the game, because the game actually does become very challenging. But it is so rewarding when you finally complete some of those harder levels. The level design itself isn't really anything special, but everything is set up in a certain way, so it is just constant action through and through. This game just becomes a straight adrenaline rush by the end of it, and I could not believe how fast the game was getting and how I was able to actually keep up with it. Usually I've got the reaction time of like a 35-year-old meth head, but with this game, I was actually able to keep up and I was having an absolute blast. I think the pacing is is fantastic, the presentation's great, the music is just incredible. It really adds to the experience. Everything is synced up with the gameplay, so as the action ramps up, the music gets crazier and crazier, and it just creates these amazing moments. There's some fun optional challenges you can do to try to unlock all of the shoes, and I think the game has a decent amount of replayability. On a first time playthrough, it'll take anywhere from like 6 to 10 hours, and it's very enjoyable throughout. After I finished it, all I wanted to do was go back and play some more. It really was that great, and this game very well might be my favorite shooter of the entire year. I really recommend it for anybody that likes this style of game. So another game that absolutely deserves to be in the conversation for best shooter of the year is Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. I know it isn't just a straight shooter, there are plenty of hack and slash elements and moments to it. I mean, you do a lot of hacking and slashing in this game. But I would say enough of the game is a shooter to call it a shooter, and man, this game is just so awesome I had to include it on a list like this. I was kind of skeptical about this game. I didn't play the developer's prior game, World War Z, and Space Marine 1 came out like 12, 13 years ago. It had been a long time. But once I played even a few hours of this game, I knew immediately that they absolutely nailed it. And after playing all the way through the campaign, messing around with the operations, and a few hours of PvP, I can tell you this game is legit. This game is an amazing throwback to like the 360 era, and I mean that in the very best of ways, where they give you a really solid, tight campaign, a fun PvE mode, and then they even threw PvP in there just for fucks. And the shocking part is that it's all good. The campaign is great. You can play up to 3 players cooperatively. It sees Titus and his gang really going up against the Tyranids. The story itself is pretty whatever, it's mostly 40k jargon, and feels like it's part of a larger, greater narrative of 40k, but all of it's just an excuse so they can put you on these huge battlefields where you fight waves and waves of enemies. This game has some excellent set pieces, and they really just let you go into the Tyranids and the Chaos Marines. Like, you fuck their shit up. The shooting feels excellent in this game. It feels very heavy and weighted, but all of the guns feel awesome. There's a great kick and feel to basically every single weapon, and you just tear these enemies up, and if you're not shooting them, you're ripping them apart with your chainsaw sword, giant hammer, or one of the other melee weapons. The melee combat is really great in this game also. It definitely feels like a hack and slash at times, but there's a good balance between shooting and the hack and slash combat. But the important thing is that it all feels really great. Some of these levels are really fun to play through also. Any of the ones where you get the jetpack, man, the jetpack feels so good in this game. I wish every level had the jetpack. The jetpack not only feels a little exhilarating, but it is just so much fun to use. It is a ton of fun to just kill everything in this game, and if you're playing with a buddy, it's even better. The campaign's got a really great length to it, around 7 or 8 hours, and it doesn't waste any of your time at all. It is all killer, no filler here. There is the operations mode where you actually get to customize your Space Marine, and you have some different missions here, and this was really fun also. The PvP, I think it's okay in this game. It certainly focuses more on the shooting side of things since you can't do executions, which is a huge part of the gameplay. Like, as you're tearing apart the Tyranids and other enemies, executing them is not only how you get your shield and sometimes health back, but it really leads to some of the most satisfying moments of the entire game. Regardless of all of this, the game is great. The presentation's excellent, it runs buttery smooth no matter how many enemies are on screen. It's very impressive when it comes to its presentation, and the game reminds me of a bygone era where they just would give you all of these extra modes. It didn't just focus on a single player campaign or be a live service multiplayer game. They just gave you everything, and it was all actually good. Space Marine 2 is one of my favorite games of the year, and if you're somebody who even remotely likes 40k, I highly recommend it. So here we have a game that you might have forgot even came out this year, and that is Wrath Aeon of Ruin. This one came out earlier in the year, and while it was in early access for quite some time, it hit 1.0 this year with its full release, and I gotta say, this game's actually pretty great. It is a boomer shooter, and it's a throwback to the Quake era of boomer shooters. It even runs on the Quake engine, and you know what? For a Quake engine game, I think this game looks great. It also plays pretty similarly to Quake, where you're dropped into these relatively large environments and are told to basically just kill everything that moves, collect some keys, and go from level to level. But these are some really long levels. Each level takes anywhere between 30 to 60 minutes, and there's actually a good amount to see. There's a lot of enemies to kill in these levels too, with some of them having over 1,000 enemies. And along the way, you'll be exploring these levels, collecting keys, and solving the most basic of puzzles. I will say this game is actually rather linear. I think the game does a great job of funneling you through these levels so that you never truly get lost. The level design is actually really solid in general. The shooting feels great as well. You get some really kick-ass weapons in this game. They all feel pretty nice, they have a good kick and feel to them, and they all feel very different from each other. That is something that is nice. No two weapons feel the same, and they all have different firing modes. and each one is just wholly unique. There's also tons of different enemies in this game. There actually is a pretty good roster of enemies with a good amount of variety. Each one has their own strategy and way to take down, and it helps to keep things fresh. And you're going to want these levels to feel fresh. Like I mentioned, they go on quite a while. The pacing, that's probably my biggest issue with this game. It feels a little drawn out. Some of these levels do go on a little too long, but damn, it really was a lot of fun. This is one of the best boomer shooters of the year, and if you're somebody who likes this genre or Quake, I think you're really going to enjoy this one. You're not going to enjoy the music though. That's easily my biggest complaint with this game. What the fuck happened with the music? Why is it so bad? Oh, and these boss fights, they kind of suck. But outside of that, this is a game I think every FPS fan should check out. Alright, from a shooter you might have forgotten about to one you definitely haven't forgotten about, and that is Black Ops 6. Another year, another Call of Duty, but at least this one is actually pretty good. Black Ops 6 is, in my opinion, the best Call of Duty that we've had in quite some time. The new Modern Warfare 2 is alright, but this is awesome. It really has everything you'd want from a Call of Duty game. I think the campaign is really great, one of the best we've had in a while. Zombies is really fun, and multiplayer, well, it's multiplayer. The campaign sees a group of rogue CIA agents assembling a team of agents to hunt down Pantheon, this paramilitary group, and there's a bunch of government conspiracy and the usual Black Ops shit. I actually liked the story. I thought it was relatively interesting and good popcorn material, but what really excited me was the level design. The level design is actually really great in Black Ops 6. Every single mission is totally different from the last, and very few of them feel like your stereotypical normal Call of Duty levels. You know, where there's explosions everywhere, you're killing everything in sight, and you're just a straight one-man army. There's only a few levels like that. All of the other ones are actually different from each other. There's stealth missions, there's a mission where you're dropped into an open world, there's a mission where you even fight zombies. It's all pretty cool stuff. And I found this campaign pretty enjoyable. When it comes to the zombies mode, I could say the exact same thing. I like the zombies of Cold War, but I didn't love it. This is actually really fun. Not only do they make it relatively accessible and easy to understand, but they give you just so much shit in this game. Very few zombie games play like the last. Almost every single game is going to feel different. It really adds to the replayability, and there's two pretty awesome maps here. I've played more of this zombie mode than any zombie mode outside of the 360 era. I've really just had an absolute blast. And when it comes to the multiplayer, look, it's Call of Duty multiplayer, you probably know what to expect. While I don't care for most of the maps, I think the multiplayer is fine. What's really great about Black Ops 6 though, man, the gunplay and the movement is so good in this game. It feels really great, the guns all feel powerful, I like the omnidirectional movement, and this game, it just had a really nice feel to it. It's got plenty of content, it's on Game Pass. It has an outstanding presentation. Seriously, this game looks really great and it feels great to play also. Like, if you're somebody who likes COD, you probably already got it, but even if you're somebody who's a bit of a lapsed fan or you haven't played Call of Duty in many years, this might be one you want to check out, because I genuinely believe this is the best COD in like the last decade. It actually is good. So here we got another crazy one. We have Mullet Mad Jack, one of the most wild games to release in 2024. Where do I even start with this game? I guess how it looks like an old school anime from the 80s or 90s filled with vibrant colors, detailed animation, and everything just has this style about it that most video games and anime haven't had in quite some time. I love this game's aesthetic, vibe, atmosphere, whatever you want to call it. It's all really great stuff. The plot is pretty simple in this game. Your main character, Mullet, goes to this really tall tower and is basically going to kill everything in his way to save this streamer. However, everything he's doing is also being live streamed, and so if he's not exciting his audience, he's not going to live very long. Yeah, the audience excitement is tied to your health. And you know how they get excited? When you kill things and drink soda. You can't make this shit up. And so this is a very fast-paced first-person shooter where you are trying to go through these randomly generated levels as fast as possible. Wiping everything out, drinking soda, kicking doors down, and trying to keep your time limit up. And yeah, this game just gets crazy fast, especially as you go through it. Like, you gotta kill these enemies in very quick succession. You gotta get through these levels really fast, otherwise you're just gonna die and you're gonna have to start the whole area over. There's quite a few weapons in this game, and while you can only hold one at a time, you can upgrade them and they become more and more powerful with different uses, and man, they all feel so good. This game, it just feels great to play. It takes a little bit of time to get used to. I mean, it moves really fast, but once it all comes together, there's really nothing else like it. Angerfoot is fast. This game, it might be even faster, and they're constantly introducing new little gimmicks, new little areas. that you'll have to traverse through in this gameplay, it really never got old. There are boss fights, but these are kind of underwhelming. They're super easy, but a majority of the game ain't these boss fights. A majority of the game is shooting basically everything as fast as possible, and it really just feels great. The music is excellent in this game, and the game immediately just became low-key addicting. I didn't want to play anything else. Yeah, I had all these other games to play, but man, Mullet Matt Jack was just so much fucking fun. It just tickled my brain in a certain way where I was like, yeah, this is all I want to play for a while. The game isn't super long on a first-time playthrough. It probably won't take you more than 3 or 4 hours, but the game is incredibly replayable, and there's an endless mode. Yeah, this game, it really kicks some serious ass. Not only is it one of the best indie games all year, but this is just one of the best shooters I've played in the 2020s, and I really just can't believe how good this game is. Yeah, it has randomly generated levels. The level design really isn't anything special, and it doesn't seem like it should be as good as it is, but once you actually play it, once you get into the swing of things, man, there is nothing else like this game. I highly recommend it to anybody that likes shooters. Even if you don't really care for fast-paced shooters, this might be the game to change your mind. It is so much fun. So here we got a Jonathan classic. You knew I couldn't do a video like this and not bring it up. Earth Defense Force 6. I love the EDF series. It's one of my favorite series in all of gaming. I was really excited for EDF 6 and it did not disappoint. If you're unfamiliar with this series, this is the series where they give you the giant guns and you blow up all the buggos, but at this point there's way more than just the buggos in Earth Defense Force. There are so many different aliens, robots, bugs, creatures, monsters, etc. This game, it just goes absolutely wild. It takes everything that was great from EDF 4 and 5 and just cranks it up to 11 with over 150, yes, 150 missions. It sees you being dropped into these relatively big areas with the same objective every single time. Kill everything that isn't a human. Just annihilate absolutely everything, and man, this game is a ton of fun also. It is so much fun to just blow everything up. There are 4 different classes to choose from. It's the 4 from the prior few games, but they all feel a little different. They've all got some upgrades and changes, and I think these are the best these classes have ever been. But for the most part, I've always stuck to my man, the Ranger, and you get some really good weapons for the Ranger. All of the weapons feel incredible in this game. Like, they all have this really great impact and feel to them. It just feels good to shoot guns, especially when it's at these giant insects or these aliens or other monstrosities. Like, everything just gets blown to chunks. You absolutely shred through these enemies where they just actually get blown into a bunch of pieces. And it all just feels really great, especially when you're blowing chunks off these frogs. You blow their arms or their head or their leg off and they're just crawling around still shooting at you. It really is a lot of fun. Or when you call down like a missile strike and the whole screen is just shaking like crazy and there's explosions everywhere. It really never gets old. This gameplay never got old for me. Is it ultra repetitive? Absolutely. We're talking 50, 60 hours. I really just never got sick of it, and I can't exactly explain why. One reason though I didn't get sick of it is this game has a really good enemy roster. Like, over the years, EDF has really built up this impressive roster of enemies, and they really just throw them all at you, and it's really great to fight all these different types of enemies. Like, they all have different strategies and abilities, well, for the most part, and I think it's cool just how big the roster has gotten. It keeps things a little fresh for this 50+ hour experience, and so I probably know what your next question is. Isn't this game like ultra repetitive? You bet your ass it is. You get dropped into the same looking areas fighting the same looking enemies over and over and over, but that is EDF for you. You even repeat some of these missions a few times, and yeah, it absolutely can get old, but for me, I was just having such a great time with it. And what's nice is that the game actually has a really smooth, steady frame rate for the most part. Yeah, it is a pretty ugly game. I'll just be blunt about it. This is one of the ugliest games of 2024. It looks super budget and out of date, but that frame rate, it was really smooth stuff. The game also has a pretty excellent soundtrack, and the entire thing can be played cooperatively. Things get even crazier when you're playing on co-op. Like, this is just another really crazy game, and it's one of my favorite games of the entire year. Even if you're somebody who doesn't really care for EDF or games of this style, I implore you to at least check it out. I know there was another EDF game that came out this year, World Brothers 2, but honestly, I'm so EDF'd out from this game that I would like to take a little break, and I have not checked out World Brothers 2, but I'm sure it's a great game also. But EDF 6 was a total blast. So here we have a game that was a little bit more under the radar. It is Forgive Me Father 2, which left early access this October. And for the unfamiliar, this is a boomer shooter that sees you playing as this priest that was locked up in a mental asylum as he fights creatures and Cthulhu-like monsters. And of course he has a weird voice talking to him with a really odd accent. I actually didn't play the first Forgive Me Father, but I was really interested in this one thanks to the art style. and because I genuinely do enjoy boomer shooters. And while I didn't love this game, I still liked it enough to the point where I would put it on a list like this. So one of the things that really intrigued me about this game was the art style. The game does look very unique, and I like how it looks. It's probably my favorite aspect about this game. It's just got a unique aesthetic and vibe to it that very few other games have. It's got a good mood to it as well. I unfortunately don't really care for the story, and certainly not the voice acting. Like, what even is some of this voice acting? But at least the gameplay's fun, which is why you came here. It is a boomer shooter at the end of the day, and these levels play out pretty much how you would expect, where you're dropped into these decent size areas and you've got to just kill basically everything that moves and find some keys to then progress to the end of the level. They aren't exactly reinventing the wheel here, but they don't need to either. You get a good variety of weapons: pistol, shotgun, machine gun, and then even this special weapon that always looks pretty funky. And you can switch these out as you play through the game and unlock more upgrade tokens, and while some of these weapons are clearly better than others, I like that there are actually a decent amount of weapons to choose from. And you'll fight a decent amount of enemies in this game. It doesn't have like a ton of enemy variety, but there's a good amount here, and you'll want different strategies for most of them, which is good. It helps keep you on your toes. Something that is kind of cool is you have to charge your flashlight by holding the F button. I thought this was a fun little wrinkle thrown in there, and it helps this game stand even a little apart from other boomer shooters, because when it comes to these levels and finding the keys, yeah, it feels just like any other boomer shooter you've played. There really is nothing special here when it comes to the level design. And by the end of it, I was starting to feel a little tired. The game can also get decently challenging, but it doesn't ever become like absolute insanity. The game's speed is pretty decent. It's not Mullet Mad Jack or Angerfoot or anything like that, but it's got an alright speed to it. The levels and pacing in general are fine enough, and progression is alright since you can change out your weapons and you can actually give like little perks to your character. I thought this game was alright. It wasn't amazing, but I enjoyed my time with it for the most part, and I think if you like boomer shooters, you're gonna like this one. This is one game though that I would say you should probably wait for a sale. They're kind of charging a lot for it currently, and I don't know if it's worth it. So here we got one that came out a little earlier in the year, and that is Helldivers 2. When this game released, it made a huge splash. Not even Sony was expecting it to just be this runaway success that it ended up being. But it's also not hard to see why so many people gravitated towards Helldivers 2. It was just a dumb, fun shooter where you and up to 4 players are dropped down onto these ship planets, and you've got to save the planet and democracy by killing basically everything, whether it's these giant bugs or these robots. Annihilate everything in sight. And yeah, it really is just big dumb fun. They give you these big ass guns to annihilate everything. You can call down missiles, there's mechs, and it really is just Helldivers 1, but now from a third person perspective. And it's amazing to see how many people latched onto this. There was like over 10 million players in the first 6 months. The game was selling so well that the servers were crashing out, and that was actually a major issue with the game. Nowadays it's fine, of course, and there's not anywhere near as many people playing, but this game was really hot for a time. It also has a rare good launch. It actually, launched feature complete for the most part. It wasn't broken and buggy at release. You don't gotta wait 6 months to a year for it to be decent. No, it's good now. It was good when it came out. It clearly can be done, and while I know there are plenty of people that are a bit disappointed when it comes to the updates for Helldivers 2, I still think it's been pretty good for the most part. Something else that's pretty great, the shooting, the feel. All of these weapons feel amazing. All of them have this certain weight to them, and when you just completely annihilate the robots or the bugs, like, it feels really great when you're just blowing chunks off. Like, no other shooter feels like Helldivers 2. It's kind of hard to describe, but if you've played the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And calling down airstrikes, it really never gets old, especially when you accidentally blow up your buddies. The friendly fire has always been hilarious in Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 can also get pretty challenging, especially on the harder difficulties, and if you start doing the side objectives, yeah, it can really actually test you. While this game doesn't really have anything like a story or characters or even all that much dialogue, it does have a personality, and that personality absolutely is able to stand through it. It makes the game actually more memorable than you'd expect. Yeah, at times it does feel a little bit like EDF Lite. It certainly is a lot more polished and has a much better presentation than EDF could ever have. The game looks pretty good, and it also runs incredibly well. But I will also make a big asterisk and say that this game is best in co-op. If you're playing in single player, I don't know how much fun Helldivers 2 is going to be. EDF 6 is still great in single player, so you gotta have friends for Helldivers 2, but trust me, it's a pretty good time. If you've been holding out on it for some reason now, might be a good time to get into it. Especially if you're into Starship Troopers, then you absolutely should check the game out. So here's one you've probably never heard of. This is 420 Blaze It 2 Game of the Year, Dank Dreams and Goated Memes, #wow/11 like and subscribe POGGERZ edition. Yes, that is the actual name to the game, and this is a real game. This is not some goofy, outdated shitpost. This is an actual video game that you can play through, and the crazy thing is, the game is actually good. This game is just an absolute love letter to the memes of the early to late 2010s. And if you don't remember memes around this time, or you weren't alive then, it was all about being pro MLG and all over the place. There were plenty of fun rainbow colors, Call of Duty hit markers, 360 no scope, all of those old ancient memes. Yeah, they've all been resurfaced here. This game is all about them, and I gotta say, not only is this one of the funniest games I've ever played, but it genuinely is shocking just how decent the game actually is. It is a first-person shooter, and it actually plays kind of well. There's plenty of different weapons. They all feel nice. As you kill enemies, tons and tons of memes get thrown on screen. There's plenty of different enemies to fight, and the references are just out of control in this game. Seriously, like every meme from the 2010s, at least up until like 2017, is in this game. All the wild shit, even if there's like straight-up copyrighted characters, yeah, they got a little Illuminati thing over them, but it's pretty obvious what they're supposed to be. The game has 11 missions to it, and all of them are actually very different from each other. They all have different themes, different set pieces, and they all feel relatively different from each other. The crazy thing is, though, that they're all hilarious. Like, this game just had me busting up the entire time. But I really, genuinely was just incredibly surprised with the level of quality that this game has when it comes to being a first-person shooter. Like, the weapons feel nice, the enemies have decent AI, the level design is actually alright, there's set pieces, there's even a story here, the graphics, presentation in general, it's pretty great stuff, and in itself is just a meme. Like, the game is exactly what it set out to be, and it's probably the greatest shitpost of a video game ever. Forget stupid fucking meme run from ages ago. This game, it's actually really good. It's one of the best shooters I've played this year, unironically, and it really hit home for someone my age. Like, these were the memes that I grew up with when I was in high school or early college. This is what I very much remember, and seeing it all come back, man, all the memories came back. I was just smiling ear to ear. The game's like 4 to 5 hours long. There are some side missions you can do, some extra challenges, and it really was just a blast through and through. The game's got a good pace to it. It's got a good speed also. It is actually pretty fast, and again, the weapons, they actually feel nice. The gunfights actually are good, and the game made me LMAO several times. Don't sleep on this one because it looks fucking stupid. It is fucking stupid, but it's also kinda goated. Alright, and to finish things off, we have the last shooter I played this year, unless you want to count Indiana Jones, and that is Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl. Now, pre-release, I really didn't know what to make of Stalker 2. It had been like 15 years since the last Stalker game. Did they even know what a Stalker game was at this point? How are they going to modernize and change it? Well, the simple answer is, they didn't. They made a Stalker game through and through. It sees you playing as Skiff, a voice protagonist who goes into the zone after an artifact just wrecks his apartment, and that's all I'm gonna say when it comes to this game's story. It's all about the zone, this strange radiated area in Ukraine where there's these physics-defying anomalies, scary mutants that want to rip your face off, and plenty of people going here for fame and treasure, or they just want to start a new life here. Something all of the prior Stalker games were really well known for was the atmosphere. They just had this mood, this vibe to them that like no other games have, and Stalker 2, I think they absolutely nailed it. I don't think the atmosphere is as strong as, say, the OG, but I think they did a really great job. The game looks fantastic also. Unfortunately, it does run like dog shit, but at least it's a real looker of a game. And when it comes to actually playing this game, yeah, if you've ever played one of those old Stalker games, you'll absolutely feel at home here. They drop you into just this massive zone, and you get to just freely explore. You can scavenge areas, you can do the odd jobs for other stalkers or people. Of course, there is the main quest, and there's plenty of people that are going to try to kill you, and these mutants that'll show up to try to rip your face off. Along the way, there's plenty of survival elements. You have to manage your hunger, your radiation, your very, very small inventory, and of course all of your guns. While you get plenty of guns in the game, most of them have terrible durability and they're ready to break. They'll be jamming every other bullet, and you don't want your gun to jam in some of these firefights. Stalker 2 is a very punishing game when it comes to the firefights. The mutants can really fuck you up, they're bullet spongy, and other humans can wreck your shit. You're gonna want to make sure you have all the supplies you need, but man, once this game clicks with you, it absolutely clicks with you. It might take an hour or two to really get going, and I'm sure plenty of people won't like that intro, but this game fully engrossed me, and it was all I wanted to play for a few days. Exploring every nook and cranny, seeing what the zone has to offer, finding all of the stashes, helping as many people as possible, and just getting fully engrossed in this world. And I think it all comes together in a really great way. Does the game have issues? Hell yeah, it has issues. It's way too big. There's a little too much downtime in between some of these areas. And those invisible fuckers can kiss my ass. But for the most part, Stalker 2, I think it is a really great game. It's unabashedly old school. There's really nothing else that plays like it, especially at this point. At times it feels like a throwback, but it simultaneously feels really fresh. As someone who's played just about every modern shooter of the last few years, this game, it really was a refreshing experience. Very different from the normal FPS, but if you're somebody looking for something different and you've got the PC that can actually run it, I very much think the game is well worth checking out. But that's it for today's videos. We talked about some shooters. What have been your favorite shooters of 2024? I'd love to know. Yeah, I could have waited a little bit and maybe included Indiana Jones, but that doesn't really strike me as a shooter like these games do. So if you made it to this part of the video, you can comment our code word. Our code word today is going to be 420 Blaze It 2. Yep, we're talking about that game like nobody knows about that game. Total hidden gem. And I'm going to single-handedly get some eyeballs on it. It was made by the Crossy Road developer. You know the Crossy Road where the fucking chicken crosses the road. It was on iPhone like 10 years ago. Whatever. I'm rambling at this point. I'll see y'all later. Stay safe, y'all. Bye-bye.